GM Fox fam, we're gonna get started in just a second or two. We got very little people in the audience right now, so we'll wait a second and see if some more people join us. Well, it might not be a very crowded house here today, with it being a Friday, and there being a double booking going on with the DJ, but we'll still get our office hours started and maybe some people will join us. So, we gotta figure out a fader on that girl. I hate that hard
I
cut.
feel so bad every time, man.
Yeah, it's just so jarring. Um, so we've got a Zoom link in the chat. I think I wrote down some loose agenda items that came off the top of my head that I'm interested in chatting about with whoever's going to be available on this call today. And one of those items is this really cool release process. We had a very strict and rigid one with kind of like a mini mall you are here map and like 10 pages of documentation from the old centralized shapeshift. And Ocean's drawn together a new one that's much more succinct and has some cool schedules about it. And so I think at some point we'll bring him up on stage and share that in the Zoom and chat about its engagement with operations and how we can support this process and talk about any edits or changes we might want to see in it. So yeah, we got our ops assistants on stage with us. Unfortunately, Lich is not with us right now. There's a massive typhoon that hit the Philippines, and it's taken out all power on our island. Thankfully, she's safe, but she's without power for at least another day or two. So send your warm wishes and good GMs over to Lich. We're all hoping that everything comes back safely over there, and we'll be happy when she's back online with us and we can hear her chickens and unsolved user problems hopefully next week.
The Roosters.
Yeah. Well, I think maybe starting with the most structured thing of what Ocean has presented might be the first jumping off point, because everything else kind of has to do with testing or bounties or the testing agreement, things like that. So maybe this release process is the best place for us to start. Ocean, you want to join us on stage and give a little intro about what you've drawn up and what it means to us going forward?
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to. I can also drop the link in the chat too so people can actually access the doc. Give me a second, try to find the link.
I got the link for you.
Oh, cool. Thanks. So I'll just give some context to that document and then give people some time to digest it. But there's a couple of things that I've discussed with engineering leadership of the work stream and previous engineering previous engineering leaders from ShapeShift Centralized about what they've seen in the past. And there's a couple of things that have been on my mind since joining that I think, we're seeing some issues with and we can improve quite a bit. The first is right now is we have this somewhat of an issue within the engineering workstream where we have a lot of code that's sitting in a PR state. And so that code represents basically like a debt or basically a debt on the work stream because it's not in customers' hands. So it's not, essentially getting any return on investment from us already having written it. And as things change in the code base, these commits or these PRs have conflicts and have to be revised and then re-reviewed. And so it's really kind of a problem where we have a lot of work in progress that hasn't been shipped to customers. And so that's part of the problem that we're trying to address here is figuring out a way to resolve that. And then the other thing is there's some lack of buy-in towards a full Git flow model where typically like you have a release branch that's cut and merged into develop and then also into main, which kicks off a release versus like a full CI/CD pipeline where every single commit basically would go to production as atomic releases. And the idea here is kind of this hybrid model where we have this really structured cadence of releases occurring. Hopefully it cuts down on the amount of work in progress that's not shipped to customers. And also the hope was that by having a schedule, it would give us a really easy way to align work streams on the needed work around a release. even though we have what essentially will be like a 24-hour-a-day workforce eventually as the DAO grows. But we want it to be in a place where that doesn't mean that engineers have to be up at the middle of the night in their time zone, or operations has to be up in the middle of the night in their time zone to deal with that. So that was kind of some of the stuff that went into this this idea. It very much is still an idea. You can feel free to suggest changes. We obviously want to talk to operations about it. We want to talk to product about it. And we think this, from the people I've spoken with, we think this is a step in the right direction. And with what it states, it's kind of the ultimate vision is a place where we do have enough automated testing, end-to-end testing, that we feel more comfortable removing some of the human API from this process and removing some of that manual validation that we're doing today. So that's the inspiration behind this. Feel free to give it a read. I'm very open to feedback on it, and we can certainly hopefully adapt this as we learn more too.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm super stoked that this is already in the state that it's in, and I'm happy you've got some examples on how we can move forward with this. This has definitely been a struggle from previous ShapeShift days of releasing every single day, or not having everything in a unified flow. So we have got to ping only one individual person who knows what the hell they did. This feels a lot more scalable than our previous practices. So I appreciate the start on this. I do have some questions about testing. That last part you said there about, I've seen some talks about Cypress testing and end-to-end testing, and how we'd like to get into a better state, and how that could potentially start to replace some manual testing. I don't know if everyone on our team is super familiar with Cypress and how those tests work, and kind of what they test versus what they don't, or what we could build them to test versus what we can't. And maybe yourself, or maybe, I don't know if Never Was, you have a little more experience on Cypress as well, to give a brief rundown of what we would be leaning into here that would help us from clicking buttons manually so much.
Yeah, so Never Was, do you want to go ahead? I'll let you speak first.
Oh, no, go ahead, Ocean. I was going to say let you go first. Sorry. I didn't get in there quick enough.
No problem. So I don't have experience with Cypress, but I do have experience with similar tools in the space. And so, yes, I think that it looks like it's potentially a promising solution to some of the manual pain that that the validation testing is right now and regression testing is. I am apprehensive to say it is going to resolve all of our problems. Typically, that kind of end-to-end testing, and I've seen in the past, it's been very fickle, and so there's only certain things that make sense to have testing up for that aren't changing frequently, and that's typically stuff that's already, let's put it this way, most often when releases have problems, it's in the stuff that's changing, not the stuff that's kind of static and stable. And so while I think we do plan on investing in it, I'm currently running down options for us getting that stood up through a bounty process, and trying to figure out, what investment makes sense there. I just want to caution that I have yet to personally see a full CD pipeline where there's no humans involved at all. And maybe that other people have, but I have not yet seen that magical vision accomplished in a UI, like full web app.
My operations, I almost threw up in the back of my mouth thinking that we would trust something with no manual testing too. So yeah, I don't ever expect us to fully robot our jobs away, but anything we can start to do to make these, like the bug that we caught this morning, for example, that we didn't catch this morning, that we had users come out to us, is one of those that I've had a practice of building edge case based regression tests or things like that before, and we just get into the point that to test every feature and to test every possibility is a 10 or a 12-hour all day, multiple people, hundreds of funds tests. So yeah, some of those things that are the harder edge cases, like MetaMask being installed for the first time or not. I feel like I would love to explore options on how we can shore up our periphery side a little tighter.
Yeah,
Totally.
yeah. I would echo. Hopefully, you guys are getting me good now. I would echo almost exactly what Ocean said. I unfortunately have not used this tool neither as of yet. I'll definitely dive in a little bit more and get myself more familiar with it. I've used other testing tools and stuff and suites in the past, but as he also said, it's not like an end all be all. The code that you're changing, I mean, you can try to write tests into that code, but it's a very fluid process and it's very hard to do time wise and expense wise and stuff like that for people doing it. But definitely like the static things, like the create users, you can always create like a default user, which we don't have now in V2, obviously. But like certain tests that are static tests that happen in a certain workflow constantly, we could kind of try to automate those a little bit more. But yeah, the uniqueness of a new code base and the test that for that it doesn't always work well in those situations. But yeah, we definitely. I mean, I'm all for looking at options and looking at the process. As Tyler also said in Ocean, I don't think we'll ever get to a place where that is ever desired to be fully automated. We'll definitely still need input and eyes and real people and stuff. But yeah, if we can do some of that and we can streamline certain things or work on the efficacy of things, it can be beneficial, definitely. And I'm very glad, Ocean, that you are taking this on as another show over your shoulder as well, because have jumped in and really like gone to work and really been. It's been amazing to watch the speed and all the things that you are helping with so quickly. So, thank you.
Definitely, I appreciate that. And Tyler, today's example, I think, of the bug that we did experience is actually a good place where I think that Cypress can be leveraged, right? The act of connecting a wallet is something that doesn't change, right? Very often in terms of the UI flow, and testing all of the different variations of having something installed, not installed, etc., should be relatively easy to do in Cypress. So I think that that's a good example of something we could catch. And if we were upgrading Beyonce onboard again in the future, that we would maybe find out that without MetaMask installed, that it was bombing out. So that maybe a good example of where this type of testing would have helped.
I can also see if the tests are able to be loaded up with like a seed phrase that's got some transaction history or assets, we can definitely maybe load up tests that check for TX histories being present or graphs and balance information being present. And I would love for all of that to feed into bots in a Discord for alerts channels or things like that.
Oh, definitely. That definitely sounds like an option that, like Ocean was saying, that's a very defined process, and we could definitely, it doesn't change very frequently. So I'm sure that there's a way we could figure out things like that, loading up the seed phrase of a certain wallet and then making checks for, transactions and different things that might be displayed.
So in us getting these tests set up, Ocean, is there anything that ops can do to support you? Is this kind of a you'll have to bounty out solo like you're doing with the other current bounty work? I'm noticing there's a bottleneck here, and I'd love to figure out how to creatively solve it to where we can scale in every way possible.
Yeah, the bottleneck's actually not. Well, assuming that you think the bottleneck is me, and actually I don't think the bottleneck is me. It's actually us getting issues created that I think are digestible by a bounty hunter. And I think that part of that is getting the engineering team up to speed on what that means. Basically, us creating issues that are unambiguous enough that someone can come into this without any context of what ShapeShift is and really pick them up. And so I'm working with a lot of people on understanding what that means, and so I think that's really what's slowing us down from creating more bounties. On the end-to-end testing front, though, what I would imagine would happen is if our first bounty would probably be something like having someone take the work that Highlander's done so far as like a proof of concept, and getting that to a place where we have Cypress stood up in a way that is, I guess, correct with the architectural vision of the web repo. And once that's there, I would hope what I could do for operations was basically give you guys a template of issues, right? And so then you guys would just fill in the specific test. And so you would outline, okay, like let's just, again, going back to today, we want to open a web browser with MetaMask not installed, go to the Fox Farm site, try to connect a wallet, right? That's like the flow. The modal should pop up as the success state. And once we got to that point, I think you guys would be very empowered to be able to create many of those test cases, and we could bounty them out. And if a lot of them are at the same flow, we could chunk them together. If they're in different kind of user flows, we could separate them out as well. So I don't think it's that far away. I think right now we're still trying to figure out the right person to get the Cypress framework stood up in the correct manner. But I would imagine we're weeks away from being able to have you guys write out a full test suite of what you want built, and us being able to get some workers in here to do that.
Totally. We have plans to have, similar to your draft here of this release process, a testing agreement draft to you guys once everyone gets back from the holidays. And I'm hoping from that we can also pull out maybe a prioritized or first easy wins for what could be tests from that. But in that way, we both know going in when someone asks for a smoke test, we both agree to knowing what a smoke test entails and what it doesn't. And when someone asks for a full regression test, we also are on the same page there. So I look forward to having that discussion with all of the engineering workstream and product as well, so we can get on the same page and meet each other's expectations.
Yeah, sounds good.
Sweet. And I guess another question too, here in the bounty process, I think everyone who's in here was in stand up as well, but we're noticing that there's a lot of work potentially to be done in updating our documentation as well. And I was wondering if that's something. I see that right now we've got Seth hopping up to doing some of that, and we've decided not to do direct changes in the README, but more so inside the docs repo themselves. Is this something that we could help support in bounty out, or even have ops take on just some optimization cleanup here as well in documentation?
Yeah, so the docs repo is just in Markdown, so it should be accessible to just about anyone. And I'm hoping, well, I actually started today, but I am definitely hoping on cleaning that whole thing up more and more, and operations can absolutely contribute to that effort. I think that's the best place for us to put any sort of technical documentation around operations, around engineering, et cetera, because it sits right next to all of the other code. So I think it's a better location than Notion. And it also gives us the ability to kind of have lots of people contribute in a way that we can control through pull requests. So I think it's the best solution for kind of durable documentation. As soon as this release process, for example, is kind of ratified by all of the needed work streams like that, this would be transferred there. The only reason I did it here was just so people could comment really easily within the Google Doc until we have kind of a better or more concrete idea that's been socialized. But yeah. The docs repo, like, love to get anyone in there that wants to start working on it.
Yeah, so I had some initial thoughts on this. Hopefully I don't break up because I'm running in an area that probably will hit me soon. But I don't know if you're familiar with MK Docs. It's kind of like built off of Markdown, and it's used for like repos for like table of contents and stuff like that, and it can be linked to like a GitHub page, and where you can point it to where you want, and it basically creates a whole table of contents and links and images and everything within Markdown to be able to formulate a whole process for people being able to follow along and get the documentation and information that they need. I was thinking along those lines. Not too familiar with it. I mean, it's just Markdown, so it's pretty simple to put together. But I agree that that's probably like Ocean was saying, great place to put the docs. Is that that documentation repo, and have it controlled through pull requests, and have it at least a control, because you just don't want anyone posting whatever they believe to be the case going up there. I do think that we do have to ensure that it is quality. That's putting up there, because it's going out to the community and to other developers, and we don't want to set precedents or procedures that may conflict with what we're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, so currently the docs repo is hooked up to Gitbook, which I'm assuming probably does a very similar thing to what you're referring to of MK Docs. So basically anything that's merged there that's in Markdown gets displayed to the ShapeShiftDAO.gitbook.io site. And so I think that this is probably the same tooling that you're suggesting, just a different product.
Yep.
Perfect. So okay.
Yeah, that would work perfect then. Yeah, that would work perfect. It makes most sense.
Yep. So just for anyone not familiar with that, basically, if you wanted to make a change, you would go into the docs repo, create a branch, make your changes, commit it, open a pull request, and if that pull request was merged, then it goes to the site. And we can certainly, if we wanted to, if operations wasn't clear on the Git, how to use Git, we could do a little session to show everyone. It's pretty simple. And it'd probably take half an hour for everyone to understand that process, so it wouldn't be a barrier to other people contributing.
Yeah, maybe we can schedule that in the next office hours after the holidays. I think that would be a great little refresher for those that could use it, or intro for those that were interested in getting in.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm making some notes to schedule that with you after the first of the year.
Cool.
Sweet. Well, this is some great information on how we can really start doing things there. If you're on this call right now and are interested in writing some of this stuff for the docs here and getting some bounties paid, please reach out to myself. Please reach out to Ocean, and we can point you in the right direction. And we can get you on this call to get on more caught up on Gitbook and the flow there as well. So I'm super excited to make people realize that GitHub isn't as scary and hacker man-y as it actually is. And there's lots of ways in which anyone in the DAO community can be a contributor to our product suite, even if it's not doing the coolest DeFi code. There's lots of work to be done here to help us make this thing better. It looks like there's a mention of a couple of people that might be interested in doing that too. So I'll reach out to them too. So that's cool.
Sweet.
What I wrote up at the top there for agenda, we just talked about the bounty stuff. We talked about the release process and briefly mentioned the testing agreement. We don't have to deep dive into that. Testing notes. We can talk about how testing is gone. We've got Ron and Never Was and ShapeShiftDAO on stage too, who've done some extensive testing, both in staging and in app recently. So the old beta.shapeshift.com staging environment, as well as things that are going on here. How's testing been going this week as we've had new contributions coming in, guys? How have things looked compared to the last couple weeks?
For the old product suite, we're still definitely going through the Thor chain testing. It's still slow going with conscious, but we're getting there, getting better all the time.
Good to know. And this new release process that was just suggested too, with the cadence of releases on Tuesdays and Thursdays that are suggested, do you think that would smooth out some of these requests, or would we still kind of be testing at a whim's notice with releases as they go out?
I definitely hope to smooth that out. Part of the reason, I mean, there could be hot fixes. So like, just to be clear, like if there's production issues, I think we all agree that we need to do the best to swarm those and get those out the door and tested. But the hope with this would be that we have a really predictable cadence. And so, for operations, you would know that, Monday from noon to Tuesday at 2 p.m. Mountain Time, that's when you'd have the time to test the next release that was going out. And, take those times with a grain of salt. Like we can, again, modify this to whatever, but that's kind of what we were thinking as a way of giving everyone a nice schedule. So it's not chaos, even though we operate in a DAO that can often be some chaos. But that's kind of the hope from everyone, is that we just have a nice kind of steady rhythm to all of it.
Totally. I hope we get there too. And I mean, this not saying that technical means, but just in a sense that we'll have the best plans. And man, my headphones wigging out. That we can set up for the best plans and have a good safety net afterwards in case we need to have wiggle room or stuff. Last thing I had on the list here, unless here, Shifty, did you have anything you want to say there?
No, I just wanted to echo that I really appreciate that that this is being discussed and that we're growing in this direction. It's definitely good to see, and I'm thankful for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't think we'll ever shake the responsibilities of testing from operations completely. But it would be nice if we could get some stronger time boxes around that so we could be supportive to the DAO and other places besides that. But part of our job description is to ensure the reliability and uptime and success of all of the product suites. So testing is going to come hand in hand with that.
Absolutely.
The last thing that I had written down before I want to open it up in case people have some random questions and things was that we do in our budget have room for 2 more operations assistants that we could be hiring, technically one now and one at the 1st of January. And then the renewal for this work stream will happen at the end of January, hopefully, if you guys appreciate what we've been doing here. And we had a good interview process for the last ones, and I would say that the biggest determining factor in bringing on our new hires, which never was in Ron, were the fact that they were very active and present and involved in a lot of the calls, and just processes that were happening in ShapeShift before they came on and joined the official work stream. So they got to get their hands dirty a little bit inside our triage process and inside what we were doing. And both of them were doing some spot testing and things like that before they were ever considered in the work stream. And my hope is that we would find more people out in the woodwork that would be interested in doing this similar thing. And so far we've had some people say they were interested, and we haven't really started tagging folks outside of that for testing, but I guess I'm going to open that up again now and suggest here on the call to people that are with us or people who might be listening in the recording afterwards. Ops was definitely looking for more help here, and the best way to get your foot in the door with us is to get noticed. Reach out to us, say you're interested. We'll tag you in some threads. We'll show you how the sausage is made a little bit. See if you can do some recreations with us and see how you kind of interface with us a little bit. And that's going to be the best way to start an interview process and get a position at the work stream. I don't know if was I talking to myself? Can you guys hear me? Are my headphones out?
No, you're completely fine. I think
Okay,
it
cool.
might be Mystic Fox that might be having an issue here.
Okay. Yeah, so if people have questions about that process and about being a part of ops, I'm happy to answer those questions too. And if not, we can kind of make this into an open forum or give people some time back too.
Well, I'm definitely excited for the kickoff today of Osmosis, and hope everybody here comes to that.
Oh yeah, that kickoff will be great. It's definitely been, I feel like, two different camps of what's going on in Osmosis, and we're getting closer. And the Venn diagram is getting closer and closer to the point that we've got one complete circle. So super happy to have everyone kind of rowing in the right direction now for what the integration work should be, and kind of from the top down with an architecture mindset, knowing how we need proposal was passed extremely early in the DAO youth, and so early it was before the V2 of the website and the app.shapeshift.com. And so we are in this new weird DAO cutting edge experience where we've got to figure out how to handle a bounty that might not be the most applicable to the future feature set that it was supposed to be plugged into. And the people that are involved with the Osmosis bounty have been really good at interfacing with Ocean and Adam and everyone else inside the centralized, excuse me, I can't say that, inside the engineering work stream. It's not centralized at all. But that core dev work stream, there we go. Working with them together to make sure that the feature sets that are being bounty forwarded and being plugged into everything set us up in the right path for adding more IBC assets, and set us up in the right way to make sure that all of our data information in our feeds is coming in scalably, so that when the proposal people get paid because they finished their work, they're not giving a whole bunch of tech debt to the rest of us that have to replace their band-aids with real fixes. So we've had a couple of conversations getting closer and closer to what's going on with Osmo, and now we've got some really great information from product and engineering. They worked really hard to have a kickoff that we're going to have some slides about what it's going to look like. There's some new features that kind of creeped into this. I think if people are interested in staking stuff on IBC, they should definitely check out the kickoff today to get some alpha on what's coming out down the pipeline with the ShapeShift app. And I guess I'll also say, since I'm just going to keep monologuing, because I do that here in Operation Office Hours. If this is your first time, that's what I do. We've got a really interesting and hopefully insightful retro that's going to happen next week about marketing and growth, and some of the decisions that have led to potentially 2 work streams, and kind of a retro and a look back at what went well and what didn't go well on the past proposal of that marketing and growth work stream. And it may have a little bit of contention. It may have some conversations that will have to be had, but I think at the end of it, we're going to have some really great insights and a blameless sort of how to move forward conversation that I've always found extremely respectful and helpful in remaining agile. That is a old meeting style that we took from centralized ShapeShift that we've done a couple times here. And this will be the first one that instead of it being focused on a project, like integrating Osmo into the app, that as a retro, or integrating 0x, this will be an interesting look back as a retro more for the DAO about a work stream itself. So that will be a very interesting meeting to attend, and I hope that we have some of those foxes that are here on this call right now joining us there as well, and that's on Tuesday, the 21st. You can check it out in the event calendar.
For sure.
All right. Well, does anyone have any last questions? I'll stop monologuing for a second and give the stage up.
I don't have any last questions. I just wanted to make sure it was clear that this document that I presented was certainly meant to solicit feedback, and I'm super open to anyone DMing me about it or leaving comments directly in the doc, because I do want it to be a collaboration between all the work streams that are involved in it.
For sure. I think we as operations will kind of take it in internally and talk about it in our sync and get some notes back to you about it. But I think you've got more than the groundwork here. You know, I think that we're at the point now that it's adding suggestions, not redrafting much here. So and we can always see how the process works and add to it too. It doesn't need to be perfect before we start practicing it.
Awesome. Thank you guys for the time then. I appreciate you guys taking it back and giving feedback.
Of course. Thank you for putting it together.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Ocean. Your proactiveness is very, very helpful for everyone.
Cool. Well, boys on stage, any last questions or comments, or shall we bring up Lo-Fi Girl and make it a good jam? HFMFs. Cool. Well, thanks for joining us, guys. Have a good weekend. We'll see